Hey, Thomas Cox here with Restoring Trust, and today I'm speaking with Peter Van Nortwick, a candidate for Clark County Assessor. I'm hoping I got all of that right. Peter, can you correct me?
Yes, and I'm the current assessor of Clark County.
Oh, okay. So you're going for re-election. Outstanding.
I'm going for
Uh,
re-election, yes.
and as is traditional here in this June 2026 interview series, I'm going to go straight to my questions. And anything you'd like to add around my questions, or if you want to answer a question I didn't ask, just go right ahead. And if you feel your biography or whatever is important is part of an answer, go ahead and add that. And at the end, I'll ask you, like a website that people could visit if they want to learn more about you. So the purpose of the Restoring Trust podcast is to address the phenomenon of institutional decay. I believe that Western civilization depends on trust in institutions. And I believe here in 2026, we're at a place where our institutions many of them have decayed at least somewhat. And I believe we need to improve that, hence this podcast. And so we're going to try to save Western civilization one elected official at a time. And I want to
Sounds
start by
perfect.
And I want to ask you my very first question, and that is, what, in your view, is the purpose of government?
The purpose of government overall is to protect the rights of citizens. Um, we are giving basic God-given rights, and the real goal of the government is to make sure that those rights are fulfilled and protected. Number role of government, which I think is mainly on the local level, is to do those things that we all need to have done that are better done as a collective rather than as you can't really do as an individual. And so I think of things like water systems, right? You have to have a system for water systems, and it can be public or private. But a lot of times when those things start out, you know, they're just needed to have a group of people come together, and government is typically the way to do it, to actually build out that infrastructure. And so those are a lot of the areas where I think that government fits in to the overall need for government.
Got it. And what would you say is the specific purpose of the office that you are running for?
Well, the specific purpose of assessors is typically to list and map all properties. And
Mm,
so if you go to, like, say, public GIS systems, see all the mapping, even when you go on your Google Maps and you want to know how to get from point A to point B, those maps come from the assessor's office. So our main duty is to go in and list properties and map them out for the purpose of tracking. Historically, assessors have been list keepers. Of course, that's just kind of one of the other duties in the state of Washington. The assessor has other duties. The one that we're most known for is valuing property then for the purpose of taxation. Um, One of the other duties that we have in the state of Washington, and actually why it is an elected position, is that we are responsible for what's known as the highest lawful levy. And so, as an assessor, I have oversight over all the different tax districts in the area, fire districts, school districts, cities, even the county itself, that when they ask for a collection in property taxes, it's my job to ensure that they're not collecting more in property taxes than they're legally entitled to. Um, then one of the other duties of the office is when um, budgets come in and they pass the budget and they send what they need us to collect in property taxes. Our job is then to utilizing equity to determine what the levy rate needs to be in order to fulfill that budget. So we don't collect more or less, we collect the amount that they need to budget. And then the last duty of assessor's offices is to run all the property tax programs that are out there, such as the senior exemption, current use farm and ag, and designated forest land. So those are the main functions of the office of the assessor.
So you mentioned the senior program and agriculture,
Yeah, what's called current use
right? In other words,
agriculture.
that people who use land for agriculture would be eligible for a deferral or a discount or a reduction of some kind.
Correct. It's a deferral.
Got it. And just to recap, when the budget is passed, that's at the county level, I believe,
It's at every
or all
level.
the
It's at
different,
the county, it's at the city, it's at the fire
everybody who's
district.
got a taxing district gets to set a budget, and
Yes.
then they all overlay on top of each other, and there's a total amount due for that area. And then you get to figure out, okay, well, the property is worth X this year, and the amount to be collected across this geography is this, and therefore you work backward into a percentage rate of what everybody gets to pay in order for it to add up to the amount that was agreed.
Yeah, it's actually a simple formula. You have the
Okay.
total budgeted amount divided by the total assessed value, then gives you the rate that you need in order to fulfill that budget based upon the total assessed value, each taxing district. And then
Right.
we put it to what's called a mill rate, which is a rate per thousand.
Got it. And that, if I recall correctly, it feels intuitively backward compared to like an income tax where there's a rate and you just pay the rate. Here it's an amount and then the rate is calculated in order to get to the amount.
Right. And that's because the state of Washington has a budget-based system. A
Sure.
lot of other areas don't have a budget-based system. They have what's called a rate-based system.
Right.
And a lot of other jurisdictions, their assessed value is maybe a percent of the value. For example, I have had property in Arizona, and Arizona is like 10% of the value. State of Washington is 100% of market value. But of course, that's mass appraisal, which is different than individual
Right.
appraisal. And I can get into that
Right.
later.
Yeah, we have a very long podcast if we tried to
Yeah.
teach
Yeah.
me to understand all that. Okay, super. So we talked about purpose of government and the purpose of the role of the assessor. When the assessor's office is being done well, what does the public see and hear?
Okay. When the assessor's office is done well, what the public sees is they see their assessments getting out on time. They see that the values are close to market. They see that we're meeting all the IAAO standards. And so most people don't understand that we assess based upon the directions of the legislature under the guidance of the Department of Revenue. And so the Department of Revenue and IAAO, they have standards that you have to meet in order to have, be considered doing the assessments right. And so we basically have to meet all these different requirements. And as long as you're meeting those requirements and you're meeting the timelines, you're really doing the job that's required. And I also believe it's also important to be very transparent, which I pride myself on, is transparency that my office provides.
Gotcha. I might come back to transparency in a second. The IAAO standards, are those federal, state? Where are those from?
It's the International Association of Assessing Officers.
Okay.
So it's an international organization, and they really look at mass appraisal. And I'll tell you the difference between regular appraisal and mass appraisal, just to help educate everyone. And when we appraise a property for the purpose of assessment, in actuality, we're not really appraising your property. We are appraising the characteristics of your property based upon the market. And so what we do is we take all the sales and we have to analyze them, and then we have to build a model. And so once that model is built, then every property has to be then run through that model in order to get a value. What that means is mass appraisal is really good for, standardized subdivisions. What it's not really good is for significant outliers, right? And so, I'll just use my opponent uses an example of a house that sold for 13.5 million and we had it assessed at 6 million.
Right.
It's an extreme outlier. It sold for like 7 million more than any other house, right, in the county. And also just recently sold for 4 million less than the 13.5 million that it sold for. But when we build a model it's actually illegal for us to go to the sales price and assess it at the sales price. We have to treat everyone in equity, and that means run it through the model. And
Right.
so we take all the sales and we have to analyze them and then take what we learn from those and the basically statistical analysis that we do and apply them to the model. So in order to
Okay.
get for the one that I'm discussing, this 13.5 million, we would actually, to hit that 13.5 million, we'd either have to, one, go against the law, which would be set it to the sales price,
Right.
or conversely, build it into a model to meet that outlier, then dragging all the other homes that sold around for 6 million, dragging them up. So like I say,
Right.
it is a weakness of mass appraisal in that outliers in any neighborhood. Even if it's a 3,000 square foot home, right, and a bunch of 1,200 square foot homes, right, it's just not good doing the outlier. And that is one
Got
of the
it.
reasons why you have a system to appeal, assessed values.
Got it. Okay. So it sounds like you guys have a fairly deterministic method. It's rule-based. It's a set of
Absolutely.
international standards. You use them to figure out assessed value based on characteristics. It's illegal to use the sale price, and it does mean that outliers can often go not where you the market would tell you they should go. And that there's an
Yes.
appeals process for when
Yes.
the so the idea is it has to be calculatable. Like it can't be so
Yes.
such a sophisticated data rich like, well, AI is going to blow this up, I'm sure. Uh, but it has to be calculatable by humans and reasonably fair to everybody. And you've got to have an exception handler for when your model doesn't match reality, because no model matches reality perfectly. All models are wrong.
Yes.
And most
And
some
yet
models
you still have to use the model,
right. I mean, you got to do
on every
something. You can't not have
on every
taxes.
property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
So
Okay, so when the office is being done well, assessments are out on time, you're following the standards, the assessment amounts are fairly closely kind of ish track the market. And I imagine if the market changed a lot, the model would catch up with it eventually, because you're going to be recalculating your models from time to time off of real world data. Is
well,
that
you know
right?
what? One thing most people do not understand about assessment, and that is so the taxes that we're paying this year
Hmm.
are based, so the 2026 taxes are based upon the 2025 assessment. The 2025 assessment is based upon the 2024 sales. And that's why a lot of times you hear people say, hey, assessments are a lot less than market value. Well, it's because assessments,
In a fast rising market, yes.
yeah, yeah, because they
Got it.
trail, and so,
And they would have to, given the process you follow. Sure.
yeah, and so first the sales have to happen, then we analyze them, give the people the possibility to appeal, and then the taxes are imposed.
Got it. Okay, so that's what people see and hear when the office is being done well. What do you see as the most important issues facing the Clark County Assessor's Office today?
I mean, the most important issues that we face as an office are the fact that the workload in a growing county keeps growing and growing and growing. And the work that we're being asked to do by the state continues to grow. And yet there's not room in the budget really to increase the staffing of the assessor's office. And so, you know, the way that I've gone and addressed that, I should just say at this point, the motto in our office is on time, accurate assessments at the least cost to taxpayers. And everyone in my office knows that that's what we do on time, accurate assessments at the least cost to taxpayers. So we've been in my office very aggressive in using technology. We're actually are looking at ways, you mentioned AI, right? How to use AI in order to keep serving the public and doing the job that we need to do as the assessor while not having increasing staff. And so we have to get better and more efficient in doing that. And so we have brought in technologies that allow us to do that. We still have less people appraising property than when I first took office in 2010. Been able to do that because we've been at the forefront of technology. We've been utilizing it. We've been successful with it. We've made our appraisers much more efficient, and I think it's a huge win for the taxpayers of Clark County.
Got it. Okay. So my prompt was important issues facing the assessor's office. What I heard back from you is that the state gets to impose your workload on you. I
Yes,
guess the state gets to tell you, here's how you will do your job.
yes, and we get
Uh,
a budget from a county that is not flush with money. So
sure.
how to do what the state wants us to do with the money that we're given by the county.
So the state imposes a workload and the county funds it at whatever level the county chooses to fund it at.
Yes,
And then you get to somehow fill that in.
yes.
Got it. Any other important issues that you feel are facing the assessor's office?
I mean, issue that we're facing right now, looking down the barrel of, and it's a good thing,
Hmm.
um, is the senior exemption. This last legislative session was updated on before. Um, it's supposed to be for low income seniors, and the percentage that was required in the law for low income seniors didn't meet the federal definition of low income seniors. And so we actually went to the legislature to um, tell them, lobby them that, hey, we think the senior exemption program, the level of that income should be at 80%, which mirrors what it is for the federal government for qualifying as a low income senior in any particular jurisdiction. And we had it tied to the county. And so we got that passed. The other thing that the legislature did in that is they entered in standard deductions. Before, we had to always go through the paperwork and see, okay, here's your income, and then you get certain deductions, and does your income meet the qualification? So they also introduced standard deduction, $7,500 for a single person household, 15,000 for a couple household. So in addition, with that 80%, the income level that increase for those that are on the senior exemption program went up to 85,000, adding in the 15,000 potentially for the standard deduction for a two income household. That's an income level of 100,000 that people are going to be able to have to qualify. Right now it's at 62,000. So we're talking about a 66% increase in income, and potentially a doubling of the number of people that are on the senior exemption program that we're going to be facing next January. And so we're already gearing up for that, planning exactly how we're going to do it. It also means that steady leadership in the office is going to be important to transition us into and do that and actually serve the public and getting those senior exemptions processed in a timely manner. There was a period of time the last time that it changed, like King County was a year out in processing their senior exemptions. I think the longest we've ever gotten out is like 16 weeks.
Okay.
We like to tell people it's like 12 weeks and then aim to get them done in 8 to 10 weeks. But it's going to definitely take strong management to make sure that we keep that on track and we get those senior exemptions processed when we're going to have an overwhelming number coming into our office.
Right. Right. Any other important issues facing the office that you want to mention? Because you mentioned now workload, budget, technology. You've got the headcount down versus 2010 while the workload's gone up, and the senior exemption.
Yeah. Well, I think I do want to talk about one of the other challenges that's just facing taxpayers in general,
Sure.
and that is the legislature, right? In part of the millionaires tax, right? They wanted to offset that, and one of the ways they did that was with the senior exemption program, which we're thankful for. But they also put some things in it that is going to greatly benefit seniors. For example, state schools part 1 and 2. Seniors used to be only exempt from part 2. Now the state legislature combined state schools part 2 and part 1, and now seniors are exempt from all of those taxes that are on the senior exemption program. Well, because the way our tax system is set up, right, that's a tax shift. So those taxes are going to be shifted onto the rest of the homeowners.
The non-seniors, right?
Yeah. We also have the multifamily tax exemption, right? They go in Vancouver, they build these huge buildings on the waterfront. Well, all those condos and everything, they have the multifamily tax exemption. They're exempt from property taxation. Those taxes that those people will be paying are shifted onto the rest of the tax base. Then we have those people that are in farm and ag that are, farming, and they're obviously valuable to our community, and we need to give them that tax break. But those taxes are shifted onto the tax base, and I just think that as an assessor, we see all the numbers, we see exactly what's happening, we see the amount of taxes that are being shifted, and I think the only way to somewhat even it out now is to go in and give homeowners property exemption, right? A homestead exemption for property owners. And so that's one of the things as assessors we have been working on with the legislature, and we will continue to work on, because it's always about shifting taxes. And we think too many taxes have shifted onto the homeowner. And so we need to find a way to kind of lower the homeowner's assessed value, right? To shift the taxes back onto the rest of the base, because more and more the standard
Right.
homeowner
Once everybody's special,
subdivisions.
nobody's special.
Yeah.
And okay, and as the number of special people get increasing, then whoever's left that isn't special doesn't get any tax breaks, and we're shifting more and more burden onto fewer and fewer
Yes. And so we
folks.
have to figure out a way to take those people and say, okay, how do we shift some of it back? We've actually joked sometimes the legislature should just tell us who we should tax and be done with it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
instead,
Make a shorter list of
yeah,
who's not exempt than who is.
yeah. Instead, what they do is they hear property taxes are too high, but they don't work to lower them, or that they're just like, okay, well, we're going to exempt this group and this group and this group and this group, and that's going to get this goal done. So
I will depart from my script long enough to say, when special treatment is for sale, the legislature becomes the target of a lot of self-interested lobbying. And I think society has to decide, do we really want our policymakers selling special tax treatment to lobbying forces, out of scope of our conversation today. But thank you for bringing that up. So you mentioned the important issues. Is there an area where you perceive or are concerned about institutional decay, either in the office of the assessor or in any of the systems that touch on the assessor's office?
I'm glad actually, Thomas, you brought that up, because one concern, and I think a lot of us as assessors share that, and it has to do with the overall housing market, right? And for years, I was a real estate appraiser. I'm a certified general. That is the highest level of appraiser you can be. I've appraised commercial buildings, apartment complexes, farms, individual houses. And so I have lots of experience in the area of appraisal, both in the office and outside of the office. I owned my own appraisal company before I became assessor. And over time, what's happened is that when people are buying homes, they're going more toward models. They're going more toward, AVM type of modeling to determine what the value is of a property. And the issue when you're doing that is that the more you do modeling, the more you rely on assessor data in order to do that modeling. And at the same time, they're asking us to do this more and more modeling using our data. We're getting more and more properties, not as many people. And so we're piling more and more and more information that's dependent upon loaning hundreds of thousands of dollars onto groups of people that are having less and less time to actually verify and make sure that data is correct. And so I
Oh,
just see a challenge in the overall that we're, really depending upon a group of appraisers, and making sure that, it's not like we always get in and we get to see all the information on a house, right? Once we usually can get into a house when it's new construction, but from then on, we're using street level photography, oblique photos. Sometimes we're doing, street, looking at it from the street.
yeah, yeah.
And so they're moving toward using that. And the person is actually in the house looking at the house. They're moving more and more away from utilizing appraisers for that. And so I just see that as a challenge in the system that
Oh,
could be a
like
weak
there's a
link that
gap
sometime come in the
between, so there's
future.
reality, there's
Yes,
direct observation of reality, and then there's like
yes,
street photos and satellites. And as you start relying more and more on more distant data points and fewer truly verified data points, the more slop is in the system.
yes,
And that is easy to game. It's
yeah,
an invitation to gaming.
yes,
And once it starts to work as a gameable thing, of course, that will accelerate and then the gap will grow deliberately because somebody benefits from that, at which point there will be a backlash or a hangover or a reckoning or
yeah,
something.
yes.
Okay.
So but we saw it
Um,
happen right in the 2006 to
oh,
2008,
yeah. It's like
right?
everyone should own a home.
Yeah,
Okay. No,
you know,
maybe not. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm going to inject my own thought here. And I notice we're going over time. Is that okay?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah,
Okay. Uh, I had speculated on creating a gig worker approach to data verification for government purposes, that you could have people who pass a certification, have a secure app on a phone that runs in the secure enclave, can't be gamed, takes GPS data, puts a cryptographic signature on the photo, and they could, for a small fee, go to a location and do an inspection of a fact that the government wants to verify, and that this would be a cost-effective way of getting the ground truth in a distributed fashion without having to rely necessarily on full-time workers. Now, you'd still need professionals to go in and really verify anything interesting. Uh, but for like a first pass, you could maybe cover more ground for less dollars with something like that. I'm not explaining it well, and I don't need you to reply to it, but I
yeah.
wanted to put the thought out.
Yeah, in fact, we're actually using that's some of the things that we're looking at AI and different things to
Sure.
utilize, right? Because we have aerial photos, we have sketches of properties. If we can use AI to say, hey, do these actually match up?
Nice.
And then we can identify those that don't, and focus on the ones that are not working. And that's kind of the whole purpose of is in outliers, right? You always want to look at outliers to begin with, and how you work and make these things better for those outliers.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I hope to come back to that someday, this idea that we're getting fewer and fewer verified data points out of reality and more modeling, and therefore
Yeah.
more and more slop in our system. Okay. Uh, what is the role that you see the Office of the Assessor playing in halting or reversing uh, any forms of institutional decay, whether it's the one we just mentioned or anything else?
One of the things and that's one of the reasons why I really work with both sides, and anytime there's tax issues, is people need to actually have transparency in what's going on. And in a lot of ways, there's not transparency. Exactly what's happening, um, you know, isn't really apparent. And really, anytime a tax thing goes on to the ballot, it's, you know, especially like a government, right? They all have their employees, they have, whether it's teachers or firefighters, they have their built-in constituency. The taxpayer doesn't have that, right? And so what they really have is they need to have assessors that are out there saying, hey, here's what the actual data is. And so the people that step forward to write the no statements, I meet with them. I meet with the people on the pro. I meet with the people on the no, You have to be open and transparent and really be willing to work with both sides, because in the bottom line, when voters go to the ballot box, they should be clear on exactly what they're voting for. And I'm not sure all the time they are entirely clear on what they're voting for, how much of a tax increase they're voting for. Um, and so those are some of the things where I have worked and continue to want to work to get more transparency as to actually what are the voters voting for when it
Yeah.
comes to taxes,
Yeah.
property taxes specifically.
If the tax proposal is not written clearly and cleanly and objectively and coherently in a way people can understand it, they don't know what they're voting on,
Yes,
but they're gonna get what they get.
yes,
Yeah. And clearly the less transparency there is there, the more likely at least some voters will feel put upon or ripped off or misled or otherwise um, like their institutions aren't actually doing what they're supposed to do, which
yes,
is the definition
yeah,
of institutional decay. It's when the institution stops serving the public and starts serving private or narrow interests, which
yeah.
is always a risk.
And
Okay,
the biggest concern we have is that, is it serving the tax districts, the government, over the individual citizens?
right. I'm making notes. Uh, okay, what are your specific plans for your term in office upcoming?
Well, one of the things we're doing now is, we're having an employee of 52 years leaving the office. So we're transitioning in. We're going to, so bringing in younger management. We are really heavy looking at the AI. How can we use AI in order to do things that need to be done? Um, there's a lot of models that we have that are, they take a lot of time, right, to go and fill in the Excel sheets and do everything that needs to be done and do the analysis. And AI that's really what it's really good for.
Hmm.
And so right now I have both people on my residential team and on my commercial appraisal team that are utilizing testing AI to really figure out ways that we can utilize AI in order to run, more complete reports, do things better, maybe some systems that we have built that are cumbersome, and to actually take those out and just be able to rely on the AI models in order to do that.
Right.
And so, and in AI models, it's not, you can also keep your data in house, right? Or
Hmm.
safeguard it, or, you can also put it out to the world. But most people don't realize our entire assessment database, everything that's in it is publicly available. By law, it has to be
Right.
open and transparent and
Right.
open for everyone to see. And so
How are you guys making the data accessible and available to the public?
we have our GIS website that people can go to. And then for the big players, you can actually, through our GIS team, request a link directly to our assessment data and completely download all the information. Like I say, it's all public data. And so everything that we have in our office, except for the income information and personal property files provided by businesses, everything else is part of the public information, the public data. And so that is all available for the big players to have access to.
Gotcha. And I asked you your specific plans for your term in office. You mentioned uh, transitioning to a new cadre of managers as some of the older managers retire, and continuing to look for technological ways to increase productivity.
Yeah.
Uh, Anything else on the specific plans? Because my next question is, how did you choose your plans?
Yeah. And so one of the other things is too, is I'd like to talk about appeals, right? If someone doesn't like their value,
Yeah.
they can appeal their value. Um, and actually the reality of it is not that many people appeal. Um, so it's less than 1% of the people that ever appeal. By the time it gets to the Board of Equalization, that number is typically cut in half. And then the number of people that actually get heard by the Board of Equalization is less than 0.001, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's extremely small. And then those that have their value changed you know, is less than 0.001. I think it's like it's 0.0081% that actually have their values lowered by the Board of Equalization. So 99.99% of the properties, right, they don't ever have their values changed by the Board of Equalization. But
got it.
one of the challenges we face as offices is that a lot of the people that appeal
Hmm.
are commercial people that have agents that their entire job is to appeal assessed values.
Oh, wow.
And so
So they got all the time in the
they,
world.
yes, that's all they do. And so they come in and, they ask for millions of dollars off every single year. And we have to respond to those. And so, really, how we can utilize AI to better have these models to respond quicker and faster and better to these agents. Because yes, they everyone deserves to have their day in
Sure.
front Board of Equalization, but most people don't realize that a lot of these big companies are just automatically having people that say, "Hey, if I save you property tax dollars, I get a cut of it," and they're
Sure.
filing, and that puts a lot of work on our office. And so, just finding better ways to actually deal with that and address them
Sure.
quicker and more accurately utilizing AI, something that we want to really work.
Gotcha. That was it for my prepared questions, and I definitely want to ask you, is there a website people should go to for more information about you, your candidacy, and so forth?
I just mainly utilize my Facebook. So you can find me on Facebook, Peter Van Nortwick. I've been an assessor for 16 years. Um, the information's out there. I put out an insert every year. Those are available on our GIS website. Those seniors that need to have the tax relief, I encourage you to go to our assessor's office website, find the information, get
Yeah.
prepared for it. And like I say, if anyone has any questions on the assessor's office and what it is, I am always available to answer questions, to educate people more about the office. I go out to homeowners associations, I go out and I talk to groups, just explain how the assessment system works. And so that's what I kind of, at this point, I'm just like, here, I'm relying on my record. I've been
Yeah.
open, we've been transparent, we've run the office well. I think most people believe that. And that's what, stand on.
Got it. And if I can uh, toss something up real quick, um, I've been doing quite a bit of work. We're off of the prepared questions now,
Okay.
uh, but I wanted to share this since you mentioned AI. I've been putting together my own AI framework, and I've been inspired by this diagram, which I'm putting on screen. Uh, and this is an attempt, and I don't recall where I stole this from, so my apologies to whoever originally created this, that a lot, when you do a single AI agent, there's a risk that it does something in a black box and it fails, but it doesn't really tell you that it failed. And what I've been setting
Absolutely.
up is one AI to do some work according to instructions that I feed it, and it then passes its output to a second different model whose job it is to critique the first one and then report back with that critique. And this creates an audit trail over time. Now, this model also has a verifier and an arbiter, and I haven't gotten that sophisticated.
Yeah.
But this sort of approach surfaces the dialogue, and I've found it has caught a lot of mistakes that occur when the first AI is trying to grade its own homework because like it created its output with a certain way of thinking, and then it's going to proof it with that same thinking. And if it had a blind spot the first time, it's going to have the blind spot the second time. Uh, So I throw that out there for whatever it's worth.
Well, I'll say that yes, that is something we've been, and that's why we like to use different AI models. We'll use Chat GPT, Copilot, maybe
Yeah.
run it through Claude, right? And so you run it through different AI models, you will get different answers, and that's why you can't just take AI and say, "Hey, this is it. This is what we're
Right.
running with."
It's
Um,
kind of the
that's
opposite
where
of
you have,
transparency and reliability, right?
yeah. You also have to. That's where our appraisers' experience and stuff comes in. Is they've been doing it for years. They know how it works, and if AI is returning something that's incorrect, right, that's where their
They'll,
knowledge that comes into it. There's a
yeah.
lot of people who are, they talk about how, well, they'll lose their job to AI, and you may lose your job to AI, but you won't lose your job to AI if you have strong underlying knowledge
Hmm.
of what AI is trying to do for you, because you still need that human to verify that what AI is spitting out
Yeah.
is correct. The AI should be utilized to save them time to do the mundane tasks, but you still need that human expertise to come back and say, is what
Yeah.
AI providing, is that model strong?
Yeah. AI can't take responsibility for things. Only
Yes,
people can.
yes.
Cool. This has been a great interview from my perspective. I hope it's been what you were hoping I would give you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I will go talk to anyone at any time to talk about the assessor's office and what they do. And, so to all your viewers, if you have any questions, reach out to me. I hope you learn more about the assessor's office. And if you need the senior exemption program, please apply. We're there to help.
Super. And I'll make sure to drop your campaign email address into the show description.
Sounds great.
Super. Thank you again, Peter Van Nortwick, candidate for assessor here in June of 2026 for Clark County, Washington. And that's it for this episode of Restoring Trust. I'm Thomas Cox. Please come back for our next episode. Take care.
Bye.